Hi and welcome back to Darvanalee Design Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed and today we are here for block 3 of a 4-part series in our Halloween mini quilt wall hanging, and we are doing the block called Gone Batty. So let's get started. So we are here to make the Gone Batty quilt block, and we're doing foundation paper piecing again, as I said in the intro. If you haven't been here before, there are a few things that you're going to need. You are going to need some rulers. You can get these adder rulers. You're going to need a small piece of cardboard, and I tend to use my cardboard bookmarks that I have laying around the place because I have many of them. And then you've got these at a quarter plus rulers, and there's 2 sizes in this pack, and I've left a link down below for you. You're going to need your print off your pattern, which you'll find over on our website, and the link is underneath this video. And then you're just going to need some general sewing supplies. You're also going to need a glue stick, paper scissors or a paper rotary cutter. I have both here, and a little roller that we've got here that we can actually roll our seams, and it saves us getting up and down. It's an optional one, but there is a link down below for it. Of course, you're going to need a rotary cutter that will cut your fabric, and as I said, you're going to need some rulers and all that sort of stuff, and some thread snips, which you will leave over at your sewing machine. All right, so basically, if you haven't been here before, this is block 3. If you want the other 2 blocks, they're linked up down below and also up in the cards up above. And I'm not showing close-ups at the sewing machine for this particular one. If you have never done foundation paper piecing, there is also a link down below where I have done a small project, which is really easy to see at the sewing machine and everything like that. So you'll find that linked up down below. You'll also find everything linked up in the cards as well. So that makes it super easy for you. If you haven't done foundation paper piecing, this is going to seem very bizarre, and I'm going to be going through it fairly quickly because, as I said, I do have that beginner's tutorial already on the channel. So go check that out first, then come back and you can make this. It is not a difficult project either by any stretch of the imagination. This is pretty simple, and I've kept it simple because I know that a lot of beginners are going to be doing this. All right, so grab all your supplies. You're going to only need 2 colors of fabric today. You'll need some pins as well, and you're just going to need black and white. Again, I have gone diving into my scrap bin, and we have some fabric here, and as always, we are going to do our foundation paper piecing where we use a glue pen to start off with our first piece. So you can see here that we've got some shaded pieces and we've got some white pieces. The white is representing the background on this particular one, and the shaded piece is representing the black. All right, so I've got my sewing machine all set up and I've got everything that I need to do. As usual, we are going to start with A1. So we flip our paper over. We put a dollop of glue there, not a great deal, and then we will just grab some small pieces, and as you can see, I've got some weird shapes here left over from the last one. That's not going to quite fit on there. We need to make sure that we've got enough for our seam allowance, so it's got to come past A3, A2, and also our seam allowance on the outside. All right, so I'm just going to lay this here, and I believe that that is going to cover it just nicely. And then the next piece that I need is A2, and that is a white piece. So let me just see what I've got here in the white. Pretty sure I've got some pieces here that will be perfect for it. As you can see, they're just leftover bits and pieces. And then I'm just going to line them up right sides together, and they are definitely over my seam allowance. And then I'm just going to pop a pin in, and we'll head over to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch on this line that joins A1 to A2. Okay, so make sure that your fabrics are facing the right sides together. When you flip it over, you'll be good to go, and then we just head over to the sewing machine and we'll stitch that down. And then when we come back, all we need to do is take that pin out. We'll flip our little piece over. We will grab our piece of cardboard, and we're going to flip that paper back onto it. And then we only need our little one for this one. So we'll just grab our little ruler out, and then we're just going to butt that up, and we're going to trim off this excess fabric. So grabbing your fabric rotary cutter, just trim that off, and you can get rid of that into the bin. All right, so that is now got rid of all of that. Now we can flip this back over and then pull our fabrics apart and then give that a little bit of a roll, and you can see how that just trims that sets that seam really nicely. Okay, so the next piece that we're going to need to work on is A3. So again, we need to trim this up, and we just do exactly the same thing. So just pop your piece of template plastic or whatever you're using. I'm going to need a bigger ruler for this one because it is a little bit longer and I don't want to make a mistake. All right, let me just grab this out. It doesn't want to come out today. It's time I just left them out. All right, so once you've rolled your paper back, we don't need to worry too much about what's happening up in this end. It's just here that we're concerned with, and we're just going to trim that off. And then that gives us our nice 1/4 inch. We'll roll our paper back, and then we're going to grab another piece of fabric, and we are going to have it go the full length. Okay, so to make it super easy, we will come to where A2, 3, and A4 all meet up on that line, and we'll get rid of any excess fabric that is there as well. Right, that is gone. You can keep those little pieces because they come in handy. The birds are extra noisy today, so I'm sorry if you can hear that. Hopefully you can't, because I do have my new mic. So that should stop a lot of the surrounding noises. So you can see there that now that that is nice and neat, we flip this over. We need just a thin piece, but remember, we've got to make it a little bit past the dotted line there, because that's our seam allowance. We need that little extra bit there. So just grab a piece that you've got that will be, I've got a strip here you can see from a project, and I'm just going to line that up because I know that I've already cut this end at 1/4 inch and I've cut here at 1/4 inch. We can just line all that up with right sides together and make sure that everything is, all the raw edges are lining up. And then I'm just going to pop a pin in, not into my finger, into the fabric and the paper. Okay, and it's this edge here that we're concerned with, that we want to line up. We're not so concerned over here because that's not going to get sewn there. All right. Now what we'll do is we'll head over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch that down. Okay, so that is now stitched down. We'll just take out our pins. Oh, and then we'll just roll this over and give that a little bit of a press. Okay, now I know that I don't need all this fabric up here, so I'll just grab my fabric scissors and I'm just going to snip that bit off and pop that there. And you can see that's past the fabric, past the paper and everything. So you can see there that it's looking pretty good. Now, we've got A4 here and it's got a little bit of an angle on it. So we need to make sure that we've got enough that it's going to cover it, okay, and make sure, so you can see here, I've got some weird angles happening with this, and I've got to make sure that it comes past here, that it's going to cover all of this area, okay. So I can now quite safely pin this on, and then I can flip it back and make sure that I'm going to have enough. And a lot of time what I do when it comes to angles, because I am so directionally challenged when it comes to them, I actually mock them up a little bit first. So I'll just put it with a little bit of a 1/4 inch, and then I'll just roll that back. And I can see that I'm not going to quite make it here, so I need to find a better piece. And sometimes you can flip them and then it'll work a bit better for you. So I'll just flip that and have the angle going a different way. And, you know, I've been doing paper piecing for quite a while, and I still do this because, as I said, I do get directionally challenged, and I can see that that is so not going to fit. Okay, so we'll need to find another piece in here. What have I got? This one looks like it might fit. It's a bit bigger, same sort of angle, but it's a lot bigger. And I can see just by placing that down that that is going to cover and give me a good seam allowance all the way around. All right, so I'm just going to line that up with my 1/4 inch marks there, and then I'm going to pop a pin in. I know that it's going to fit. I'd much rather do a quick put the pin in, roll it back and make sure, then stitch it and then try and unpick it. That's why I do that. All right, flip it over, stitch on that line. I'll just roll that back and you can see there that I've covered everything. So this is where the two pieces are going to meet up. So I needed to make sure that I had some seam allowance here and also here. And you can see there that that is going to match up just beautifully. And I'll give that a little bit of a press. And then I'm going to get I'm going to turn it around. And then I will just roll this back on itself and then I can trim off that excess. Pop that back. And then all I need to do now is grab a piece of black fabric, and I don't need a very big one, but again, this actually has an angle on it. So this is where the angles come in handy. And I'm just going to line those up. And this is probably a little bit bigger than I actually need, but it's a scrap piece in there. I don't actually have any smaller bits with angles. Oh, that one might work. Yeah, we'll try that one, see if that one works. Yep, I can see that that is going to go over quite nicely. Didn't see that one hiding in there. All right, so pop your pin in. Now remember not to get too close to the pin, because what will happen is that you will end up basically stitching on the pin, and you don't want that. You can see that once you get the hang of it, it is a pretty quick process. Okay, I'm pretty much just doing this as I go. It's pretty much in real time, and it's not taking long at all. It's a nice quick process. All right, the last bit that we need is a square of white fabric. So we'll fold this back. We'll get rid of our excess fabric. And I always just chuck all of my scraps in there. It can be quite a messy sort of project, this one, but I do end up using it. And as you just seen, I pulled out a little piece there that I didn't realize was there, and I was able to use it. It's a great way to use up all your scraps. I do love foundation paper piecing for that reason. Right, we've got another little piece here. I can see that that is going to cover it pretty good. So I am going to line that up. Pop that pin in, making sure that your fabrics are right sides together, flip and stitch. Okay, and roll that over. Give that a little bit of a roll. And don't forget to switch on your iron, because it's really good to give it a really good press once we've trimmed it all up and everything before we actually assemble all the blocks. So make sure that you've got your iron plugged in and turned on. The leads going everywhere at the moment. All right, so now what we can do is we can get rid of all of this other fabric. So grab your ruler and we're going to trim on the dotted line. So I like to line my 1/4 inch mark up on that inner solid line, and I know that I've got a 1/4 inch then, and then I'm just going to grab my rotary cutter and trim that off. Okay, and I'll just get rid of all the bits of paper and whatnot, and then we'll just spin that around, and we'll keep doing that all the way around until it's trimmed off. All right, so that is our first piece done. Then we'll move on to, so just sit up on your ironing pad and give it a really good press, and then grab your next piece. Okay, so you can see here we've got some really big pieces here, so you want to make sure that you've got some really big pieces of fabric. But as always, we're starting with B1. We'll flip it over, put a little bit of glue there, and you can pop that on like so. And then we want to see which one. We just need a little piece of black fabric. But before we do that, as always, we're going to lay that down flat. We're going to grab our bookmark or your piece of template plastic, whatever you're using. Fold that back out of the way. And then we'll just trim this up to a 1/4 inch. It's a little bit bigger than a 1/4 inch. So I just want to trim that up a little bit. And that gets rid of that. And then I will just grab my little piece of strip fabric that I've got here, which I'm pretty sure, or maybe not this time. I'm not going to use that one this time. Let's see what else we've got going on here. Here we go. Got a little piece here. Just add that there. Grab our pin. Put that in. and head to the sewing machine and stitch that down. All right, now we have our really big piece here. All right, and because I'm working with some big pieces, I'm just going to get rid of these scraggly bits up the top and down the bottom. And then I'm just going to place my bookmark on here, fold that back, and then we'll make our nice 1/4 inch. Okay, so get rid of that. And we need a larger piece of black this time. All right, so, and because it is a bigger piece, it will flap around a little bit, so you may have to put a few extra pins in. And then once I've already got it stitched down, I will put some glue on this to hold it in place so I can put the next piece on. All right, so let me just have a look and see what I've got here. Some of these smaller bits are not going to work, so I'm going to go for this larger piece. Okay, so I am going to just lay the straightest edge that I've got here, which is this side here. I'm going to lay that on there. I thought I'd cut it wrong then, but I haven't. It's all good. And then I'm just going to grab my pins and pop that in. All right, and head over to the sewing machine and stitch that down. Give that a roll. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a couple of dots of glue there just to hold this larger piece in place. That is just going to make it super easy when it comes to trimming it up and flipping it over. Okay, because the next piece we're putting on is this little triangle piece. But I am going to get rid of some of this larger stuff here. So I'm going to do this piece over here first. I'm just going to trim this bit off down here. Get rid of that. And this top bit. Get rid of that. And then I can just roll this back. And then that will get the ruler on there. And trim that off. All right. And then I can trim this edge here. Just folding that over. And that'll get rid of this last little piece here. All right, so we've got 1/4 inches, 1/4 inch seam allowances all over the place there, so that's good. It's all done. Okay, so we need a white piece of fabric, and we don't need a big piece for this one, so we will be able to cover that there, so that's all good. All right, so I'm just going to place that here, and pop a pin in, and then head to the sewing machine. All right, it's going together nice and quick. Okay, give that a little bit of a roll. It's going to hold that in place. And again, we'll need to just trim that white fabric off, so we'll just roll this back again. And we can get rid of that. All right. Now we need a large white piece of fabric. All right, so if we have a look in our bit here, should have a piece, yep. And then all I'm going to do is flip that over and line up my edges. Put the pin in, and we'll probably need 2 for this one. And then after we've stitched this, we'll move on to our last piece, which only has a couple of seams in it, which is great. Nice, quick and easy block, this one. And again, because this is a larger piece, I will just put a couple of pieces, dots of glue down. Not a lot, just a couple. And then I'm just going to smooth that down into place. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to trim that up and basically just move everything out of the way so you don't inadvertently cut anything. Okay, and again, we're going to line up our 1/4 inch mark on our ruler with that inner solid line and cut on the dotted line. All right, so you can now set that aside and give that a nice press, but that is the second part. And now we'll move on to our third part. Okay. So again, we're just going to do exactly the same thing. Although, I'm just looking here. Oh, I might have. Yep, I was just going to say, I don't think I've got a big enough piece. All right, so we're going to start with C1. Again, we'll flip that over. We've got a bit of an angle thing happening there. So I just want to make sure that everything is covered up there. And just put a little bit of glue there just to hold it in place. And then I'm just going to flip that over. And create our seam allowance. There. Flip it over. Doesn't want to stay in place for me. All right, that's better. Okay, so now what we need to do is grab some white fabric. And is that going to go over? Maybe. All right, pop our pin in. Now remember, your fabrics are now right sides together. So that first one goes right sides facing up, and then your second piece is right sides touching. Okay, so let's head over to the sewing machine and stitch that down. Roll that back. Give it a bit of a press. Flip it over. And now what we're going to do is we are going to get our bookmark. Flip that back. And get rid of this excess fabric. It's a little bit like paint by numbers, except you're patchworking by numbers. And once you get your head wrapped around the flipping, and like you're not stitching on this side, you're flipping it, it makes a lot more sense. All right, so we need that large piece of black that we had just before, because we've got that, pretty much all of this area is black, and then there's just a little bit of white up in this corner. So we want a piece that's going to fit it. And be wide enough as well. So I've got my seam allowance there, and all I'm going to do is line up my raw edges of that seam allowance. I'm going to pop some pins in, just like always, and I'll use 2 in this instant because we are working with such a big piece. And now when we head over to the sewing machine, you want to make sure that your fabric hasn't twisted or anything like that, especially when you're working with such a large piece. And we're just going to stitch on that line. And again, I am going to use some glue to hold this in place because it is such a large piece, it will move. So where I will put the glue is up this end here, near this bit here, and just here and here. And I just put a little bit, and then I'm just going to roll that back and then smooth that down. Okay, and I will also give it a little bit of a roll on the seam as well, just to make sure. And that is sitting beautifully. And then all I'm going to do is come up here and fold that back. Okay, and then grab our little ruler like always and trim that off. Okay, and then in this case, because it's so big, I am actually going to just trim that edge off because it's such a big cumbersome piece to have there. I just don't want it flapping around. Okay, so we need a piece of white fabric. Have a piece that's going to fit. Maybe. Is this going to fit? I think it just might. All right, so I'm going to lay that on. Now, I'm not going to lay it like this because I need to make sure that I've got a 1/4 inch, enough in my 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to go past the fabric, the end of the paper. And remember, we've already just trimmed that off. So that is definitely need our 1/4 inch there. Okay, so I just want to go past a little bit. And then all I'm going to do is place a pin in there, and then I'm going to stitch that down. Okay, so we've stitched that down. We can roll that back. I can see that I've got enough there. Give that a bit of a press, and now let's basically trim this up. So grab your ruler. Again, you want to place your 1/4 inch mark on your ruler on that solid inside line, and then we can get rid of all of our excess fabric, and then we are ready to assemble this together. Don't forget, we need to give it a really good press before we do assemble. Okay, and assembly is really easy. You've just got a couple of seams to do and then we're done. And then you can set that aside. All right, so let's get rid of all of our tools because we don't need to trim anything up now. We don't need our quarter rulers, so we can get rid of all of that. Take rid of all of our fabric, pop that back into my scrap bin. All right, now we've already pressed these ones, so I'm just going to press this last one. Make sure everything is nice and crisp. All right, those. All right, we've got our 3 pieces. All right, so we've got A, B, and C. Okay, so we want A to be at the top, and then a C is like so, and then B is like so. So basically what we're going to do now is we're just going to join those rows, and it's super easy to do. We are just going to place them on top of one another. Now this one is a little bit different than our other ones. We do need to make sure that our little seams here are nesting, okay, because we've got a white meeting a black, okay, and if they're nesting really nicely, then everything else is going to go together nicely. And then we're just going to pop a wonder clip on there because I prefer to use wonder clips than trying to go through all the layers of fabric. Now, and paper as well. So make sure that everything is lining up properly. If you feel that it's not, just check that you've actually pressed your seam properly. And in my case, I hadn't. Okay, so I've just given that a bit of a finger press and then I'm just lining that up. And you can see now that everything is lining up properly. I want to make sure that my fabric isn't moving either. So again, I'm going to make sure that everything is where it needs to be. And then I'll just pop that wonder clip on there and that's going to hold. And then I can just worry about the rest of this down here now. And then we'll head over to the sewing machine and I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and at the end, and we're just going to go all the way along that line. Now I will say, leave your needle in the down position. It makes it super easy, especially if you've got to adjust, especially when we come to these little seams that we have to nest. Make sure that none of your fabric is twisted up underneath, okay, and that your raw edges are lining up. Okay, and I can see there that that had moved a little bit, so I will just need to sort that out a little bit more. Okay, and it's better to double check than stitch it and then try and unpick it. Okay. My goodness, I do not know what's going on in Kingaroy today, but it is so noisy here today. We've got planes going past, we've got fast cars, we've got people playing loud music. It is a hive of activity here today. It's normally so quiet on my veranda. All right, so don't forget to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Okay, so get rid of your long threads. Okay, you can see there I've stitched on the line and I'm just going to roll that back. And there we go. All right, so we've got a nice little point there. That's why I love foundation paper piecing. It's just so precise. I love it. All right, and then we just need to put this last one on. All right, so do I have that around the right way? Let me just have a look. Yes, I do. Oh yeah, cool, no worries. I'm thinking that's got to match up, but no, it doesn't. It actually goes like that. So I'm just looking at the layout and it definitely just goes like that. Okay, so don't panic if you think that this is out of place. It is not. All right, because I just panicked for you, so you don't need to do that now. So we don't have any seams that we need to nest up. So basically now what we need to do is just lay that on top of one another. And again, you can just grab some wonder clips, make sure that the raw edges are lining up, and then just place several wonder clips on there, and then you're just going to stitch on that line like you did just for the previous one, and then our little block is done. You can just give it a press and we're sorted. Okay, let's get rid of all of our threads and roll this back. Now again, just leave your paper on there until we're ready to assemble, and That way you will be not having anything wobble around. I like to assemble with, I leave the papers on until I'm ready to assemble because it just makes it super easy then. All right, give that a really good press. All right, so that is the Gone Batty block done, and you can set that aside ready for next week. Now, next week's videos are going to be the final block and the assembly. So on Wednesday of next week, you will get the final block. On the Thursday, we will do the final assembly. So there'll be 2 videos. Okay, originally I was going to do them together, but it is going to be a super long video. So we'll do the final block next Wednesday, and then we will look at doing the final assembly on the Thursday to split it a little bit up for you. All right, so that is the Gone Batty block. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I do hope that you enjoyed making the Gone Batty quilt block. Super simple block to go together. Now, don't forget to join me next week. As I was just saying, we have the 2 videos going up. We have block 4 going up on Wednesday, and on Thursday we have our final assembly. All right, but that is it from me today. If you've made it this far, leave me a little bat down below in the comments there and tell me what you thought about the block. Did you find it hard, simple, or anything like that? And also, if you've made it this far and you've yet to subscribe, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and then that way you're not going to miss out on any future crafty uploads. And as always, don't forget to give it a thumbs up as well. But that's it from me today. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Hope you get lots of sewing in, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.